Hey, what's up y'all? Welcome back to another video. This is the Modern Market Criterium, which is near Denver, Colorado. And you can kind of see it's on a police track. So it's going to be a pretty flowy course. It does have some up and downs over the course of the race. We did over 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So it's definitely not flat. And this was also going to be my last Cat 3 race, because if I got a few points, I was going to have a mandatory upgrade. So I was like, all right, let me try one more time to see if I can get a win. I'd gotten a decent amount of podiums, but I was really trying to finally get a win in Cat 3. And my biggest threat to that was probably going to be this guy that I'm riding behind right now, in that kind of like neon yellow kit. So he rides for Groove, and he's a breakaway rider. So he was going to be my main person to mark for this race, because I really wanted this to come down to a field sprint, because I felt pretty strongly that I could probably out sprint most of the people here, but I obviously didn't want anything to get away in a break. So my goal is just going to be glued to his wheel and not let him get away in a solo break or a breakaway that I'm not in. Skipping ahead a couple minutes, everything has been mostly pretty chill, but on my left side, a rider is going to do a little bit of an attack. Wasn't too hard, so didn't really have to spike up very much. So I'm just going to kind of follow wheels here. And then another thing too, if you would watch my previous video, this Groove right in front of me, he was one of the ones that got away in that breakaway. He got second in that race. So definitely a very strong breakaway rider. So I'm just going to kind of follow wheels here, but then he's going to attack over this little riser, and I'm just right on him, so I'm able to follow pretty easily. Didn't have to spike up very many watts, but this was going to be the story of the race. So this is going to be covering attacks the whole time and seeing if I can get this to come down to a field sprint. We now have one rider that's kind of going up the road, and this is another opportunity to attack. I spiked up over 1,000 watts there, and yeah, so I'm just gonna cover this attack. There was just non-stop attacks. I think I counted around like 20 of these, and I'm also just not gonna really be too interested in pulling through unless I thought it was like a actually good opportunity to get away. And now another one is going on the left side, so I'm gonna follow this move. And the thing about Cat 3 races, which everyone who's raced in Cat 3 probably knows, it's like no one ever lets breakaway get away for the most part. It's because everyone's just strong enough to bring these brakes back. So it was one of those things where I was like, if I could get into a break with just him, or maybe a couple others, like I might have, been in for something like that. But it was like it seemed like every time, attack would go, the whole field would be covering the move. And now another attack's going by Pizza Party guy in the front and this Colorado cycling guy. So I'm gonna cover that, sit up, then he's gonna go again. So I'm like, all right, I'll follow this. I know he's pretty strong. So and now we actually got a little bit of a gap here, and so I'm gonna put in a little bit of power, not too much, but then I kind of look back and see like, all right, this move is also being covered. And yet another attack. So I'm gonna get on his wheel, and this time we actually pull out a little bit more of a gap. And it looks like we got another rider that's kind of joining, and we actually, this time I looked back and I saw like, oh, this might be an opportunity. But this guy's still doing a pull, so I'm just gonna hang in his draft. But yet this is another attack that's brought back. I looked back and I was like, all right, this field is pretty motivated and bringing us back pretty quick. So I'm just going to kind of sit up. I'm, not interested in pulling the field around. We're about 20 minutes into the race, and there's a rider that's got a little bit of a gap off the front, but we weren't too concerned with him. But this is where the Groove Rider is going to attack again through this bend. And I'm just all over it. But we really pulled out probably the biggest gap. And so I'd look behind and I'm like, all right, this actually might be a good opportunity. So I'm going to kind of still stay in this draft, but then I'm going to kind of come up onto the side and tell them like, hey, we got a gap.
There's a little gap.
And so I'm going to pull through here, going to do 400 or so watts and see if we can, stretch this out a little bit. Because, I've been spending a decent amount of energy covering all these attacks, so I wouldn't mind a nice consistent effort in the breakaway. And while we see if we can pull out a little bit of a gap, I want to real quick shout out the Pros Closet, who's the sponsor of this video. TPC has tons of high quality certified pre-owned bikes for sale that have all gone through a detailed 141 point inspection. And that includes things like frame integrity checks, replacement of worn parts, and more. They even offer 30-day risk-free returns. Plus, you can even trade in your current bike for cash or store credit if you're looking to upgrade your current bike. So yeah, if you're looking for a new ride, be sure to check them out using the link below. And now back to the race. Yep, as you can see, we were brought back, so we are now back to square one. We're now a little over 30 minutes into the race, and there's been more attacks that have been brought back, but you can see my heart rate's relatively low. I've been kind of letting the field chase things back because the rider I've been marking hasn't really been attacking because his teammate was off the front. So I was just gonna kind of sit in and not do too much work. But this is when another attack is gonna go, and again, I'm kind of all over this one. And at this point in the race, I'm really just looking to neutralize attacks. We're, only about 15 minutes to the end of the race, and I'm like, all right, I'm all in for the field sprint. I'm not going to be attempting to go with any breakaway. I'm just going to try and neutralize it and sit on. And I think one of the reasons these attacks were just not very effective is most of these attacks were coming from right off the front or right near the front. And that allows the field to easily see like, oh, hey, here's an attack going, I'm going to follow that. Versus if you're kind of at the back of the field and you get that slingshot going around and coming around people with speed, that is definitely going to be a lot more effective of an attack. And now I kind of find myself near the front, but I'm just going to be putting out no watts at all, and I'm just going to keep peeking behind me. I'm doing like less than 100 watts and have no interest in pulling anyone around, but I keep peeking back, and now I'm going to swing out to the right, so people are going to come around me. I'm like, all right, here's probably another attack going to go, and sure enough, on cue, the Groove Rider goes again. And yeah, I was, kind of just anticipated that, and yeah, it's going to kind of sit in his wheel. We're now coming in 2 laps to go, and there's another attack. I had to go over 1,000 watts to cover this one, but again, if I'm kind of sitting behind him and the other riders are kind of just sitting behind, makes it a lot easier to cover these attacks. We're now coming into 1 lap to go. And it's a really long finish straightaway, so I don't want to be too far up. But I'm also weary of a late last lap attack. So I'm gonna still kind of stay relatively near the front. I'm just gonna kind of hang out in this, whatever, like 6th, 7th wheel here. Another thing is, since it's really flowy and it's wide roads, I'm not really too worried about getting stuck behind anyone. I'm now just kind of being mindful of anyone trying to attack. And sure enough, on the right side, someone's going to go. But I'm going to let other people cover this move. I'm going to try and conserve my energy as much as possible until that finishing straight to be ready for the sprint. Another factor is that we're now kind of heading into a headwind, so a solo attack on this stretch is going to be very difficult to stick. But you still don't want someone to get too much of a gap. You know, we're almost have 1K to go. And here's where the Groove Rider's going to go one last time, and I'm going to just stick onto his wheel. And I'm actually going to try and be on his left side because I'm pretty sure he's going to look over his right shoulder, and I was kind of wanting to just hide from him. But then he looks the other way and sees me and then rolls out of it. But now the rider that had a little bit of a gap is pretty close, so I'm really not concerned with closing that last bit. So I'm just going to really roll out of it. And this is when the full send rider goes. And again, I'm just going to kind of sit in. I'm just wanting other people to close these gaps. And then this one, another rider is going to go. And now we're getting pretty close. We have 800 meters to go. And I feel like I'm in a really good position. But this is a long straight and it kind of goes uphill. So I don't want to go too early. But this Pizza Party rider is going up the road and pulling out a gap, and Groove Rider's not interested in closing it because he knows I'm on his wheel. And we're now under 500 meters to go, and I feel like I'm just stuck. If I go, people are going to be on my wheel. I'm going to lead everyone out. And if I don't go, this rider might ride away. And people are starting to come around, so I'm like, all right, time to put on some power. And then now I'm going to kind of start my sprint. And see if I can chase this guy down. I'm like closing really quickly, and I'm like, oh, can I get there? And 50 meters to go, and just run out of real estate. Oh man, I was excited for another podium, getting another second place, but man, it's just like if I had another like 20, 50 meters, something like that, I think I would have been able to take the win, but left it a little too late, unfortunately, but that's just how it goes. So now it's off to racing in the P12 field. So next week I'll be having my first P12 race video coming out. So definitely like and subscribe if you want to see that, and I will catch you on the next one.